Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Black Business Roundtable. I am your host, Doug Blacksher, broadcasting to you today live from the city of Diversity, Oakland, California. It is National Women's History Month, which is March 1st through March 31st. At the end of this podcast, we will recognize 6 women and their contributions to our nation. Stay tuned for a scholarship application opportunity later in the show. We also continue to ask for your social media support. Share the following hashtag: Stop School Bullying, Crane County TX 2022, and that's TX for Texas, and bring attention to the plight of this mom trying to help all students of color at this school, especially now that the NAACP and the feds are involved. Share, please. Driving While Black, Michael Thrash, Taylor County, TX, once again is Texas. Attach our podcast link from October 14th, 2021, listed once again in today's podcast description. Michael Thrash's story. Take action on social media. Click the hashtag and tag us too. A special thanks to our sponsors. Visit Chef Carter Lewis of Soul Slice. I love saying that, Dr. Ashley. Restaurant and catering in Oakland, California. The website lists winter break, but please note they are open every Friday in March from 6 to 10 p.m. Biscuit, sandwiches, and $5 beer. I better hurry up and get over there for that $5 beer. And gospel brunch 12 to 3 p.m. on March 13th. RSVP required for both events. Also, spots are filling up quick for their spring season catering services, Easter, Father's Day, and graduation event. Located at 5849 San Pablo Avenue in Oakland, California, 94608. Website, soulslice.com. Phone number, 510-879-7689. And be sure to let them know that Dr. Ashley and I from the Black Business Roundtable sent you. Magnolia Engineering and Construction for their continued support, and we congratulate Tammy Willis on being a minority woman-owned engineering and construction firm. Visit her website, magnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com, and learn more about Tammy Willis. Today's show highlights. Tonight we will discuss the race for Alameda County District Attorney with one of the candidates and friend of the show and my sister. In addition, we will discuss the high rates of in-custody death, sexual assault at Santa Rita Jail located in the city of Dublin, county of Alameda, and operated by the Alameda County Sheriff's Department. Our guests today include our weekly own Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology, immediate past department chair, assistant professor of psychology at University of the West. Dr. Ashley, welcome back.
Thank you for having me, Doug.
Also returning to our show today is attorney Pamela Price. Pamela is running for district attorney here in Alameda County. Her website is PamelaPrice4DA.com and Instagram at Pamela Price Cares. Tasmere is our next special guest, and this sister is out of New York and fellow podcast host of Blackout live from New York City. We're going to have to visit her, Dr. Ashley, on December 31st under Black USA Network of Shows. Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, will return later this month. She is running for District 4 in Oakland, California. Her website is Janani4, and that's FOR, Oakland.com. And new Instagram at Janani4, and that's the numeral number 4, Oakland. Now, for the national political highlight. Midterms are 12 weeks away. May 24th in Georgia, and the Black Business Roundtable was at the virtual town hall for Marcus Flowers on March 8th. This is a monthly occurrence, and anyone can attend, so I encourage you to go on site and check it out. Our previous guest from February 24th, Marcus Flowers is a brother, proud Army veteran, husband, father, and patriot. He is a Georgia Democrat running for Congress to unseat and out-fundraise Marjorie Taylor Greene. Learn more on Instagram at Marcus4, and that's the numeral 4, Georgia, or Marcus4, and that's FOR, Georgia.com. His new yard signs are ready for District 4 residents. Man, wish I was down there with you, Marcus. I'd have one on all sides of my house. It looked like a barricade. Senator Reverend Raphael Warnock, a Democrat, helped flip Georgia blue along with Senator John Ossoff, is running again for the U.S. Senate. He is a pastor, advocate, Savannah born and raised, and Morehouse College alumni. Learn more on Instagram at Raphael Warnock or Warnock4, and that's FOR Georgia.com. Website, once again, Warnock4, FOR Georgia.com. Stacey Abrams, a Democrat, is running to unseat Republican Brian Kemp for governor of Georgia, and to quote Stacey Abrams, opportunity in our state shouldn't be determined by zip code, background, or access to power. Learn more on Instagram at Stacey Abrams or her website, StaceyAbrams.com. Val Demings, a Democrat, is running for the 2022 Florida Senate seat. If you would like to stay updated on Team Demings, text the word JOIN to 77076. The former Orlando police chief is seeking to unseat Republican Little Marco Rubio in Florida. Little Marco, pack your little bags and put your little baby Kid Mart tennis shoes on and scurry on up out of there. Val Deming for the 2022 Senate, her tagline, never tire. Election date, November 8th, 2022. Learn more on Instagram at Val Demings or her website, valdeming.com. Now, before we get into Dr. Ashley, and as you see, Dr. Ashley, I've zoomed through this, I have to share what happened to me today as I engaged in the BART, Bay Area Rapid Transportation Directors Board meeting today. Audience, I was extremely disheartened to not see one Black director on BART. And they're making decisions on redistricting. And let me be clear, audience, their redistricting is similar to gerrymandering. They have taken Oakland and broken it up such that Oakland extends all the way down to Hayward and across the water to San Francisco. And instead of having a network of block of black voters representing black people, it has people in Hayward. And let me be clear, Hayward churches don't know Oakland churches. They don't know Allen Temple. They don't know Acts Gospel. They're not involved with the Oakland African American Chamber of Commerce. They're not involved in the Oakland East Bay Democratic Club, and neither is San Francisco. And let me be clear, audience. Let me be perfectly clear. The issues that are going on in Hayward and the issues that are going on in San Francisco are different than the issues that are going on in Oakland, California. And that is exactly why San Francisco is down to 3% African American. The divisiveness of a group of people who understands how to politically break up the power of the black vote in the black community is shameful. It's shameful. And I'm going to further by saying, because Dr. Ashley, I'm watching the time,
Go
girl,
ahead.
I can talk all show. But audience, let me be perfectly clear. And I'm going to take off my glasses because I want you to understand exactly what I'm saying. The way you destroy a black community, the biggest enemy of black people is ignorance. The biggest enemy of black people is ignorance. And that doesn't mean if you don't have a PhD or a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, or even a high school diploma. Ignorance is when you do not understand the politics in your community, thus allowing other people to make decisions that impact your community. And that even ties in today why we have a civil rights attorney who argued a case in front of the Supreme Court and won. And let me be perfectly clear and take it a little further and why I have so much admiration for this sister and support her to be our next Alameda County District Attorney, Pamela Price. Not only do I know her personally, but she was my attorney on a successful case. And while challenging a billion-dollar company, she brought me into Alameda County Democratic Central Committee as her alternate delegate. And that is why I am here today. I am here to educate and articulate why it's so important to show just as much enthusiasm as you would have in the Raiders game in Las Vegas, that you're paying a billionaire more money to stay a billionaire, versus what's going on right here in Oakland, where we're handing another billionaire a fairyland at the Howard Terminal. Black people, white people, Hispanic, and others. Understand the politics in your community. Because if you are electing people who do not look like Dr. Ashley and me, and understand that we are on the bottom of education, we're on the bottom of economics, we're on the bottom of labor, we're on the bottom of health, we're on the bottom of everything, because we're not keeping our eyes on the ball. I humbly ask each and every one of you to get involved, call a friend, call a cousin, ask them, are you signed up to vote? Do you know who your Board of Education directors are? Superintendent is? Do you know who the city council is? If you don't, you will not, and I say this to black people, you will not be a part of the decision making that goes on in your community economically, in education, in health, in housing, etc. And I'm going to finish up, Dr. Ashley, by saying that after the Board of Directors unanimously voted on a redistricting package. There was only one lone person, Director Robert Rayborn, who stood up and said, this is not right. Then after that, they had to report on the hiring practices for BART. And let me be clear again, since they have rammed a redistricting map that's going to break up the black vote in this city, I asked them, well, what is the percentage of African-American black people that you hire? Well, I thought if we were playing football, he dropped the ball and the other linebacker, no, a lineman picked it up and ran it in for a touchdown. That's how bad he fumbled the ball. He couldn't give me a number. But as I conclude with my rampage and ramping about how black people do not understand how important it is to understand the politics, they couldn't give me a number. To that end, Dr. Ashley, I think we're going to have you do the news of the day, and you're going to have to give me some therapy because I am truly disheartened at watching all those white people on BART, Bay Area Rapid Transit, break up the Oakland black voting bloc so that they can destroy. And this is the beginning, because the city of Oakland is already redistricting. Last but not least, please take your political power and your voting opportunity and responsibility seriously. Dr. Ashley, please, the news of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Powerful words, and I hope our listeners take heed and getting involved and holding our local officials accountable. Greetings. On this day, March 10th, 1865, Confederate soldiers hang black woman in Darlington, South Carolina. So again, Confederate soldiers hanged Amy Spain, a young black woman, from a sycamore tree on the courthouse lawn in Darlington, South Carolina. Accused of treason and conduct unbecoming a slave, Amy was sentenced to death by a military tribunal and killed just weeks before the end of the Civil War. When Union soldiers arrived in Darlington in early 1865, many enslaved people in the area believed it marked the end of bondage. A large number of Darlington's white residents had deserted the area as Union forces approached, and the soldiers allowed the black men and women to take whatever belongings they had been left behind. Amy, who had been enslaved by Major Albertus C. Spain, reportedly took linens, sheets, pillowcases, flour, sugar, lard, and some furniture from the Spain home where she had been enslaved and worked without pay for years. When the Union soldiers left Darlington, Confederate troops returned, and white residents who had remained in town during the occupation reported that Amy had been a, quote, ringleader of looting. And for listeners, I'm sure you remember that phrase being widely used during the uprisings in the early months of the pandemic. They also accused her of leading the Union forces to hidden valuables. Soon after, Amy was tried, sentenced to death, and hanged. And according to newspaper reports, her punishment was acquiesced in and witnessed by most of the citizens of the town. On April 9th, 1865, Confederate General Robert E. Lee surrendered to the Union, ending the Civil War. And by the end of the year, ratification of the 13th Amendment abolished slavery, except as punishment for crime, but no one was ever held accountable for the hanging of Miss Amy Spain. And again, that news is courtesy of the Equal Justice Initiative. And we, as always, weekly invite our listeners to check in their webpage, calendar.eji.org, for more information.
Thank you, Dr. Ashley. And once again, I'm sure my face will reflect. I sat in a meeting to hear how we are being destroyed politically. And audience, before I asked Dr. Ashley for her weekly check-in, I was ignorant up until I met Pamela Price, and she got me involved in going to Alameda County Democratic Central Committee, being her alternate delegate, joining committees, whether it be Community Policing Advisory Board, and other organizations that are designed to empower our people. But if you don't know what's going on in your community, then you don't know how to vote. You don't know who to vote for. We are at DEFCON 1. DEFCON 1 means we are losing, and if we don't do something, it will be lost. So I humbly ask each and every one of you to call your family, your friend. Tell them to call and find out who is on your school board, who is on your city council, who's voting for measures that are destroying the fibers of the Black community. And to that end, Dr. Ashley, if you see I have my ball here,
Nice.
I'll be discussing with you at the end of the show. Wait a minute, you got a football. And next audience, next up, our weekly check-in for our very own Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology. Dr. Ashley, please take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. And I just want to piggyback off of that, news of the day from 1865 and acknowledge how on Monday evening the Senate passed the Emmett Till Anti-Lynching Act of 2022, and now it's heading to President Biden's desk for his signature. Previously last week, the House of Representatives passed it. I think the vote was 422 affirmative votes to 3 nay votes. So again, when we talk about the death of Emmett Till, the death of Amy Spain, as we learned today, just now in 2022, is there a bill that, if signed into law by President Biden, as expected, would make lynching a hate crime? This is how long it's taken to get to this point. So again, in the spirit of resiliency, greetings this evening to our listeners all across the country. So excited to be with you in this space again. As always, want to remind you now is a great time as the season is getting ready to change and the clock is getting ready to be pushed up an hour for many of us. It's a great time to check in with ourselves about this new season, how you're feeling, halting for those moments to check in during the day. Are you hungry, angry, lonely, tired? How are you sleeping? Are you moving your body? What is the last time you've had sun? With whom are you connecting? When is the last time you've laughed? And what do you do to get back to yourself? And as always, want to highlight the websites available for mental health support. And so in the spirit of Therapeutic Thursdays, I want to salute a special Black woman. I find that Black History Month is 365. In addition to that, February is too short. So I wanted to highlight a Dr. Ida Gray Nelson Rollins, born March 4th, 1867, departed May 3rd, 1953. Dr. Rollins was the first African-American woman to become a dentist in the United States. And she became the first African-American, regardless of gender, to practice dentistry in Chicago. And in addition to her primary profession, she was involved in several clubs, and her social activities were widely reported in the Black press. She served as vice president of the Professional Women's Club of Chicago, vice president of the 8th Regiment Ladies Auxiliary, and was a member of the Phyllis Wheatley Club, a group organized to maintain the only Black women's shelter in Chicago. And so when I think about, International Women's History Month, but also Black women pioneers and unsung heroes, and thinking about, again, pioneers that are breaking so many barriers that didn't get the support or celebration necessarily, or not widely circulated. We have a responsibility to teach our youth about our history, and the giants whose shoulders they stand on, like myself. And so I just had to salute Dr. Nelson Rollins.
Thank you, Dr. Ashley. We appreciate that. And I got to break off one last thing regarding this board meeting. Last week, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago, I spoke emphatically on this redistricting. And one of the board directors who lives in Castro, who represents Castro Valley, Pleasanton, Dublin, Director John McPartland. Now, I don't know if he was being funny or he just misread my name, but he goes, "Oh, well, Mr. Blackbird or Blackweed, or I'm not sure." Let me be clear, Director John McPartland. My last name is Blacksher, and that's Mr. Doug Blacksher to you, sir. Thank you. Dr. Ashley, please uh, give us a sponsor break so I can calm down. girl, if you'd have been at that BART meeting, I am sitting back watching the fibers of not just civil rights, but human rights of
Mm-hmm.
Black people being destroyed, whether it be here in Oakland, California, Alameda County,
Mm-hmm.
or if it's down in Texas with kids who are mimicking their parents, bullying Black kids, or police down there taking money from hardworking American, Black American citizens. It's just disheartening, it's disgraceful, and this country needs to take a look at it. And this was a great move forward for the lynching bill. But I have to tell you, I am so glad that we have a civil rights attorney coming on today who has argued a case in the Supreme Court for the job of a man coming on today that's going to relax me. So, Dr. Ashley, please take 2 minutes to give our sponsor a break. Thank you.
Sure. I just want to piggyback off of that for a second and also acknowledge Oakland and Richmond's very own Ryan Coogler, the successful director who's directed Creed and Black Panther, who was on the news talking about how he was wrongfully detained at Bank of America in Atlanta and is accused of being a bank robber, and that has hit national news. I want to talk just a little briefly about anger, real quick. I'll make my comments brief because I do understand, Doug, that you're angry. And sometimes we can be afraid of anger, but emotions are signals. And anger typically is a signal for us to recognize that our boundaries have been crossed. We feel disrespected from some sort, that something, there's an injustice happening. And so it's not that we should necessarily be afraid of being called angry. That's a valid, that is a valid emotion. It's what we do with that anger. And therapy is a place where we can learn how to experience anger and then use our internal and external resources to figure out exactly how we want to channel it. So we know Oakland, California is a beautiful city of, and social justice, that we don't take anything. I was laughing, Doug, because when you said, Dr. Ash, I said, "Oh, you can't take the town out of us," but it's what you do with it. So does that mean that you then write a letter to advocate like your mother did? Do we channel that into our voting, into organizing, coming up with our own program? So use that anger to help you figure out and discover, what am I upset about? What has been crossed? What is unfair? And then figure out how to channel it more toward your values. So that anger is justified. Doug?
Well, and I'm going to say this before you move on. What also angers me is that some of these white politicians
Mhm.
will find a Black person to destroy the fibers all the people. It's like back in 200 years ago when they had the house Negro and the field Negro. We got a lot of house Negroes running around here, and I'm praying to God that somebody pulls them to the side and let them know once they get rid of all the field Negroes, you next. Dr. Ashley, please take it away.
Absolutely. So thank you, Mr. Donnie Glover of BlackUSA.News. And be sure to tune in to Chap and Friends on Mondays, Party Marty Let's Talk on Tuesdays. Congratulations to Ms. Tammy Willis of Magnolia Engineering and Construction for also being sworn in as the new president of the Women's Council of Associated Real Estate Property Brokers. To join our advertising family, please send us an email enclosed with your company name, address, website, phone number, and social media page to bbrt2021@hotmail.com. Again, there is a scholarship opportunity. The Black Business Roundtable wants to remind our audience about the scholarship being offered by Gamma Phi Delta Sorority Incorporated, established in 1943, Gamma Chi Chapter, San Francisco Bay Area. Watch our February 24th, 2022 episode of the podcast featuring Mr. Marcus Flowers running for Congress in the 14th District in Georgia. His website, www.marcusforgeorgia.com, as well as Janani Ramachandran, Esquire, friend of the show, who is running for District 4 in Oakland, California. Find out more about her campaign by visiting her website, jananiforOakland.com. And Doug, back to you.
Dr. Ashley, the more you talk, you notice my face is kind of look like a rock, and then as you talk, I'm kind of loosening up. So thank you. And audience, this is exactly why mental therapy is so important. Because I know everything Dr. Ashley says helps me address my anger and focus my energy. Because anger can hurt you, but your energy can make a situation better if you channel it and you get the right kind of mental therapy. Thank you, Dr. Ashley. Dr. Ashley, can you please welcome one of our sponsors, Soul Slice Menu today.
And see, this is when Therapeutic Thursday turns into Torturous Thursday for me. Just my stomach is already growling. In psychology, we call this classic conditioning. So as soon as it's time for this segment, my stomach knows. Oh man, Chef Carter, we miss you and we look forward to you rejoining us when you can. But foodies, listen up. It's time for that weekly reminder to head out to Soul Slice, located in the heart of Oakland at 5849 San Pablo Avenue. Their website, www.soulslice.com. You can also contact them via telephone at area code 510-879-7689. What might you get when you go to Soul Slice? Well, let me remind you. Hot cauliflower with grilled broccoli on rice. Hot links, beef or vegan, with collard greens and soul sauce on rice. Cajun shrimp with fried okra on rice. Cornmeal fried chicken with grilled broccoli on rice. Oxtail stew on grits. That's the one. Hot soul rings with celery. Oh, and let's talk about their pizza. Their pizza, again, features a handmade, light, thin wheat flour crust. And try this one. Cornmeal fried chicken, charred collards, garlic, smashed potatoes, cheddar cheese, and barbecue sauce on a custom biscuit crust. Their soul sweets include apple crisp, peach cobbler pizza, sweet potato pie pizza, and cocoa rice pudding. And then follow that all by enjoying beer, wine, and spirits by Black-owned entrepreneurs. Again, www.soulslice.com. That gospel brunch is coming up this weekend. Run, don't walk there.
You know what? I need to be there right now, doubling up on a Hennessy. I know that's not by a black spirit maker, but once again, that menu and those spirits are just what I need right now. Since we are running on ahead of the game, is our guest backstage?
I will check on that.
And if not, I'd like to talk about the city council meeting that I attended last week and how they made it difficult, impossible for a black developer to be building a $250 million project. The black-owned company owned by Michael Johnson is called Urban Core. They've been working to develop a piece of property down by Lake Merritt, which has homeless encampments on it. And every black project in this city seems to always be challenged by the white administration regime that is just dead fast, hell bent on destroying developers and contractors, as well as giving less than 0.32% of $500 million in government City of Oakland contracts to black-owned businesses. Audience, I don't know about you, but we're going to move from being civil violations. These are human rights violations. Because if you can't build your business, if Bart can't break out the numbers, how many black people they hired, not having one black person on the board now, and if your hiring practices are consistent with your board membership, black people, we're in trouble in the Bay Area. We are in trouble. And until you start watching, going to city council meetings, going to board of supervisors, and speaking of that, I went to the Alameda County Board of Supervisors. And I'm going to give out one of the board members, Alameda County board members, Kuto, Keith Carson. I called him in regards to an issue, and his office immediately started to address it, that issue. But this is the type of action that we all must do. When you see bad and you do nothing about it, you're not you are part of the problem. And I'm just going to have to stop, tiptoeing around the problem, Dr. Ashley. But we are at the bottom of everything in Oakland, Alameda County, California, United States, and the world. And as they said on Friday, a lot of white people don't know about this movie. We're on the bottom of everything in the world, Craig, in the world. So, black, African American, people of color, I humbly ask, I respectfully ask that you get involved. Make sure you are registered to vote. Make sure you know who's on your school board and run for school board. Make sure you know who your council people are and run for city council. Make sure you know who your mayor is, and make sure your mayor is not selling you out a whole city to one billionaire to have a playground. Make sure your Alameda board, your county board supervisors are making sure that COVID relief funds are being fairly distributed out in a reasonable amount of time. We have so many issues that are just like being, what do they say? You're being killed by 1,000 cuts. Black people in this country, that is what's happening since you're not getting involved politically. Dr. Ashley, please.
Yes, so I have the pleasure to welcome back Ms. Pamela Price, Esquire, running for Alameda County District Attorney. And what I'm going to do is read her bio as she comes on. Ms. Pamela is a graduate of Yale College and UC Berkeley Law School and a survivor of the Ohio juvenile justice and foster care systems. Her career spans fighting for justice on behalf of women workers, low-income people, communities of color, and winning a case before the United States Supreme Court. Ms. Pamela Price, as you can see, we are beyond excited to have you back. Thank you. We know you are extremely busy. Doug, as you see, he's fired up and ready to go. But I have the opportunity I have the privilege to ask you the first question, and we're gonna let you rock. And I know, Doug, I know you're ready. You got your ball, because as you see, he's ready to roll up his sleeves as if he's working on your campaign like back in the day. So, Ms. Price, can you tell us, how do you think the district attorney race is going?
Well, first, let me say thank you to both of you all for having me back. I am excited. I see my friend is fired up and ready to go. Fired up, ready to go. And, that's the spirit of our race. I take that from the Obama campaign, how he talked about how one little lady just told him, just get fired up and ready to go. And so we are fortunate that we have lots of people like that, and the campaign's going really well. It's caught fire. This is Women's History Month, and my whole life is all about the history of the struggle of women for equality, and particularly Black women. So I'm really excited in this Women's History Month and International Women's Day. I just was featured in the Nation magazine, so that's all good. We're rocking and rolling. We're rolling to the finish line. We got less than about 62 days to go before ballots drop. And we are walking and talking to folks in Livermore, Pleasanton, Castro Valley, Hayward, Berkeley, Albany, Oakland, and all over, and Fremont. So that's our strategy, is to put boots on the ground and reach out to the whole county. And we're the only campaign that's actually doing that. We've been talking to people. We opened our Fremont office, as you guys know, in April of last year. We have an office in Oakland, and we are putting boots on the ground and talking to folks and, showing up where the community wants to hear about what the next phase of justice will look like in this county. Yes. So we're really excited.
District Attorney, Pamela, I'm sorry, you haven't won yet. Can you give our audience the addresses or the contact person so that they'll know exactly how to get in contact with your campaign? Because first off, I want to apologize. Since as you can see, you've taught me well. Audience, if you look at this screen, prior to me meeting the new district attorney who is going to win this race, I was like many of you. I was a bump on the log. I was a pimple on a face. I did nothing other than look out for me. Pamela Price, I thank you for getting me involved. I thank you for making me your alternate delegate. I thank you for preparing me for the battle that I've been in for the last couple years, and I also thank you for helping win my case. But anyway, I had to let our audience know these are the type of politicians that we need to start training the next leaders, because we are losing bad. I went to city council meeting, and they took a Black developer who put millions of dollars and has a $250 million project on the line, and just kicked him to the curb while they're building billions of dollars of projects in the city of Oakland. And our mayor, Libby Price, goes to Washington, D.C. to reach out to Kamala Harris to get $400 million to build his Disneyland at the Howard Terminal. But I'm going to calm down, because I see my therapist, and I see my attorney. So I feel insulated. I feel love. Hold on, I feel love. So I'm gonna take a deep breath because I see my Dr. Ashley. I see you, my therapist, and I see my attorney. So I know I'm in great hands. I got the best women in the world around me. But to that end, what is the status, my friend Pamela Price? What is the status of the violations that you uncovered in the DA's office when we ran the first time? And I say we because you remember, I was hand and foot with it.
Yeah.
And now I can't be out there, but I'm going to make sure that you get the media coverage. Because as Malcolm X said over 50 years ago, media can make an innocent man guilty and a guilty man innocent. But we're going to make Pamela innocent because she is. Go ahead, Pamela. Take it away.
Thank you, Doug. So true. The media has been very challenging in the Bay Area, particularly around Oakland. Anything that's positive is hard to really get any traction with. And, you know, we had a story last year that the Washington Post broke. You know, we really had to struggle with our local media, but the Washington Post broke the story and covered it, that the district attorney's office of Alameda County, the chief, administrators of justice in this county, in fact, were breaking the law. They were using the county's resources to campaign against us. They were spying on our campaign. And thank you, Doug, you were there in 2018. So many people came out in 2018, which was amazing because it was the first time in 53 years that anybody had run. And so most people were like, what? When did the DA become elected? And we were like 1859, okay, like a long time ago. But no one had challenged that seat of power or even tried to hold them accountable since 1966. And so when we ran, it was groundbreaking. And unfortunately, when you don't have a contest, you don't have transparency, you don't have accountability, and you don't have equity. And so we have a climate within the district attorney's office that was reflected in a bunch of emails. They just openly used the county's email system to campaign on county time. That's totally illegal. And so we exposed it. We brought it out, and the Attorney General of California has jurisdiction over it because obviously the district attorney can't investigate herself. So we are hoping that we presented it to Rob Bonta and asked him to please take a look at it. We haven't heard anything from him, but we did get a response from the FPPC, the Fair Political Practices Commission. They took jurisdiction. They gave Ms. O'Malley an opportunity to respond. And what we found was not only were there deputies in the DA's office that were engaging in, felonious conduct, because it's a felony, that it was also that they were colluding with the police associations outside the office. And so the FPPC has opened an investigation against Ms. O'Malley's campaign. They're investigating her campaign, as well as the PAC that the police associations formed and that they colluded with her. So those are the two items there. And then the grand jury is taking a look at what happened with the deputies in the office. Yes, sir.
Girl, I'm dying to ask a question, and they always say don't ask a question if you don't know the answer.
Yeah, I taught you that.
And you taught me well.
Okay.
This is off script. Who's running against you? And if you don't know who, Terry Wiley is. And if he is running against you, is he alleged to be involved in this? And you don't have to answer that because I will. Yes. So, moving forward.
Well, I can answer it. We have the emails. Emails are like your name is on there, right? So we have emails from Mr. Wiley where he is campaigning on county time. Kind of a problem. You prosecuting people for felonies while you're committing felonies? Kind of a problem.
Dr. Ashley, now you see why I'm laughing now. I went from that I used to be a wrestler at Castlemont High School in Oakland, California. and I'd have that stone face, but I can't even have that stone face with these ladies because I'm insulated with mental therapy and a civil rights attorney who won a case, argued in the Supreme Court, Pamela Price, who is now taking the time to run for district attorney for the county of Alameda. Thank you, Pamela Price. Pamela Price, next question. Now, you know these get harder.
Okay.
Next question. What should we know about the relationship between the sheriff and the DA's office? Thank you.
Well, from my perspective, and certainly that of many people in this community, it's an unhealthy relationship. The district attorney has an obligation as a minister of justice to hold all law enforcement agencies accountable to the same standard as regular everyday people. And that has not happened. Our sheriff is also the coroner, so there's an inherent conflict where he gets to determine the cause of death, even if it involves his own officers or his own facility. And you have to recognize Santa Rita County Jail is the third largest county jail facility in California and the fifth largest one in the whole country. The whole country. So we have a huge jail facility that most counties don't have. There are 58 counties in California. We're the third largest in California and the fifth in the country. So this person is responsible for a huge portion of our public safety budget, for the care and custody of many people in the community that happen to go into custody and are incarcerated at Santa Rita County Jail. And the district attorney has failed in her obligation to hold him accountable or to provide any kind of oversight over what is actually happening in the jail. And so that's a real problem for us. Yes.
Pardon me for breaking in, but I have some breaking news. How long has Sheriff Ahern run his empire? His leadership as sheriff as Alameda County Sheriff in Alameda County? Thank you.
I believe that he's been there. I know he's been there at least 12 years, maybe more, longer than that. At least 12 years is my understanding. And before that, he was essentially anointed by his predecessor, who was anointed by his predecessor. So it's the same pattern that we see in the district attorney's office, where these positions are just passed down from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And in the sheriffs, it takes a tremendous effort to actually run against your boss, right? And we know that there have been people who have tried it in the past and they've been very unsuccessful. It has not worked out for them. And so, it's a very toxic kind of situation where you have a law enforcement official who does not reflect the values of this county and does not he doesn't pretend to be part of have the progressive spirit, or even be a Democrat in Alameda County.
Dr. Ashley, I'm telling you, we're getting ready to run out of questions, but you might as well sit back, grab some popcorn and a glass of wine, because whatever time we have left, audience, if you didn't know, you're going to know today.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Ashley, please, fire up the next question.
Absolutely.
Wait. I'm sorry. I missed one question on the script.
Go ahead.
I'm so happy to see my doctor of psychology and my civil rights attorney who won a case in the United States Supreme Court, who wants to be the district attorney for Alameda County, Pamela Price. Ms. Price, the next question is, what are some of the problems with Santa Rita Jail, which is what did you say, the sixth largest in the country?
The fifth largest in the country.
Thank you.
The sheriff has been, there's a lot of problems there. And there was an article a few years ago that described Santa Rita County Jail as the most dangerous place to be in Alameda County. We have had suicides that have gone unexplained. We have had killings inside between people in the jail. We've had misconduct by officers in the jail, staging fights. The conditions are known to be abusive and unsanitary. So I'm familiar with 2 lawsuits that were brought by women. One woman who was left to have pregnant was brought in on a probation hold and was left to have a child by herself. She literally gave birth in a dirty cell on the floor all by herself, and the deputies ignored her screams, ignored the cries of the other women in the unit that were calling out saying she needs help, she's having this baby, and they just ignored her. And so that case was brought. I think it's still pending. It may have been settled. There was another case that was settled quite a few years ago, brought by a group of women who were arrested as protesters. And when they got to Santa Rita County Jail, and these were white women, when they got there and they saw the conditions of that jail, what women were forced to do, no sanitary, women on their menstrual have no supplies, no accommodation is made for the fact that you're a female in that jail. And they successfully sued and settled. Right now, there's a hunger strike going on where the inmates are protesting the quality of the food. And we know that certainly the inference is that the food is so bad because then people have to buy commissary. They have to buy their food, so they have to pay the commissary. And what we found throughout the justice system, and even more so in the jail system, is that there's a financial incentive to incarcerating people, okay? Not only is the sheriff receiving millions of dollars to have folks incarcerated in Santa Rita County Jail, but he's also charging for food, for supplies, for telephone calls, these kinds of things that just, rip money from people. You got to put money on the books for basic amenities in Santa Rita County Jail. And so the conditions there are horrible. The United States Department of Justice monitored and surveyed our county jail and the John George facility and found it to be totally unconstitutional, and is threatened to put Alameda County under receivership because we are over incarcerating people with serious mental health issues and challenges, and we are not providing adequate mental health services. This case recently, Babu, was settled. The inmates have rejected that settlement finding because everyone, except I guess certain people, recognize you cannot treat people in a jail cell. You can't treat somebody in a cage who has a mental health issue. They don't need to be in a cage. They need to be in a community-based setting where they can receive mental health services to address whether it's addiction. We require people with drug addiction issues to go cold turkey at Santa Rita County Jail. It's criminal. It's just absolutely, it's like barbaric what we're doing with that jail facility. And it's all occurring with the complicit, compliance and assistance of the Alameda County District Attorney.
Ms. Price, I just want to jump in for a second, Doug, and just echo that as a mental health professional who's passionate about providing holistic, culturally competent care. I was watching a television documentary that was showing Santa Rita Jail, and I found myself horrified by what I saw. I lost hours watching it. It was just, one episode after another. And so I'm just, looking forward to hearing more when we talk about your Justice of Compassion, campaign and your ideas about rehabilitation, how we can bring humanity back and restoration, because it's needed. But yeah, I'm just sitting here as an Oakland native, horrified, but then also my wheels are spinning, thinking of how I and colleagues can get involved to really make a difference.
Thank you. And I appreciate it, because that's what it's going to take. We've been shut out of this conversation. I have bonded with the families of the seriously mentally ill. It's a group called FASTME, and they are on the front lines of demanding that our county board of supervisors actually deal with this issue and address it, both in the context of what the Department of Justice is saying, which is that if we don't get it together, we're going to be in receivership, as well as in the context of what is the right thing to do. What is humane? We serve the residents of this county. How can we possibly be presiding over these kinds of horrifying incidents and just the policies and the practices? It's frightening.
So that our audience understand, what will be a receivership mean, so that our audience understand. Thank you.
That means
Thank you, Honorable DA Price.
That means that the Department of Justice will install an overseer over the county jail and the John George facility. And they will take control from the county board of supervisors and administer those facilities. And they may even shut it down. They will decide what is best for Alameda County, not the elected representatives of Alameda County. I mean, for instance, right now, the Oakland Police Department basically has been in receivership for 18 years.
And the school board.
Right. The school's about to go, but we're trying to stop that. But right now, the city of Oakland pays a court-appointed monitor $100,000 a month to look at what our Oakland Police Department is doing. And we are nowhere close to getting out from underneath that control, outside control.
So let me be clear here. The Oakland Police Department has been in conservatorship, paying an outside entity $100,000 a month for 20 years.
Well, it's escalated to 100,000. I haven't looked back to see how long. I know at least the last 3 or 4 years we've been paying $100,000 a month. And let me shock you even more. It's a part-time gig, okay? He doesn't even come. He does not live here. He doesn't come here on a regular basis. He comes like maybe twice a month, maybe once a quarter. It's a part-time gig.
Well, let me say this, audience. Mayor and city council, those of you who aren't progressive, that could have put money on your John Fisher ballpark instead of taking away for the homelessness and the academics and other community things. Think about that. Dr. Ashley, please. I'm looking at you two ladies. Wow. Breathe, breathe.
Well, I know I'm just shocked too. I know my phone is going to blow up and someone say, now, why didn't you go that route? Because $100,000 a month part-time. Let me continue on. Ms. Price, can you tell us a little bit about your platform of justice with compassion? We know a lot of residents are concerned about crime. It's not something new. This is, again, waves have been happening. And we'll start there, just telling us a little bit about your platform, Justice of Compassion.
Sure. We recognize that our criminal justice system has failed just about everybody who has been impacted by the criminal justice system, whether you are a victim of crime, whether you alleged to have perpetrated a crime, whether you're a witness, whether you are, again, like small business, like myself, it just is a broken system. It operates on its own, and it operates like a machine, and it has crushed lives. Mm-hmm. When you look at what has happened with respect to juvenile justice, there's been no compassion in how we address our youth. And 86% of all felony juvenile arrests in this county are Black or brown children. There's a racial disparity that is, it's so wrong. And yet it's our children who are being thrown away. Brian Stevenson says none of us want to be judged by the worst thing we have ever done in our lives in just mercy. And that is so true for our young people. Most of us, the worst thing we ever did in our lives, we did before we were 18. Some of us before we were 25. Okay. Some of us got caught. Some of us didn't. All right. But the fact of the matter is, because you make a mistake, we have to deal with the conduct. That does not mean we throw the person away. And you can't throw away young people. I'm one of those throwaway kids. Nobody thought I was going to graduate from high school, much less go to Yale, become a lawyer, go to Supreme Court, have my own business, be buying buildings, or run for district attorney. Nobody saw that except maybe one of my foster moms. But I tell people, don't ever give up on a kid. You don't know where that child's going to go. And so when I talk about justice with compassion, first and foremost, I think about young people and how we have to intervene in their lives when they make a mistake to help them get on the right path. nobody wants to throw away anybody else's child. Okay. And then I think about victims. I've represented victims and witnesses and seen how the criminal justice system has just abandoned people, left the family just hanging. Okay. And it's outrageous. We cannot expect to get a handle on crime of any sort if the public does not have trust in the system that everybody's going to be treated fairly, regardless of your age, your race, your gender, your zip code, your immigration status, your sexual orientation. These are things that absolutely need to not be barriers to justice. And right now they are. They are used as barriers and as swords to basically divide people and keep people out of actually getting real justice. And so when we talk about justice with compassion, it's about expanding the view about how we administer justice and making sure that we're doing it in a way that does not destroy communities. I want to hire prosecutors who want to change lives and not destroy them.
And Ms. Price, just as a follow-up, and I'm so grateful that you talked about both sides. Can you clear up just the misconception that justice with compassion does not mean excluding accountability?
Right.
Because I think from the victim survivor standpoint, they may see that or hear that there's been a misconception. Can you just kind of clarify, that accountability balance piece?
Yeah. No, I have met with victim survivors. I am a victim survivor. Hello. Right. And I mean, as a young person, my foster mom held me accountable. I love that she held me up and she held me accountable. Okay. She was like, you messing up. You don't get to just walk around here and act like you ain't going to be held accountable. So that's ingrained in me. Mm-hmm. And as someone who has experienced domestic violence, I understand how important it is that victims feel like they got some protection, that they got some measure of justice through the thing. Representing families of victims of violence. I have been holding people, police and institutions accountable for 30 years to victims and saying it is so important that we speak to the needs of this family, that they don't get thrown away or they lost their loved one. That matters. It should matter to everybody in the system. And the person, and so survivors need to understand. I think about not only we hear about, the shootings where somebody dies. We don't really think about or talk about the number of times somebody gets shot or hurt in this community and they don't die. And they got to survive. And the family has to take care of that person. Those are huge considerations that are completely ignored in our justice system. And so we really have to change that. And trust me, my administration will be very sensitive to the needs of victims and their families and survivors, and making sure that we are giving folks culturally competent services and a helping and healing hand to overcome the trauma of having been subjected to some criminal activity. I get it. I do.
Thank you.
Well, yes. This is, I feel like I'm in class again when the doctors are on the show. And Dr. Ashley, this goes directly to you. From what I hear, future DA Pamela Price, is that instead of police going out there beating up mentally disabled people, you would show compassion by understanding if there is a psychological problem that caused the action, then we can have a professional like Dr. Ashley. So Dr. Ashley, there's going to be a job for you in the near future.
Recruit me back to the Bay. Huh?
Yeah, you're going to be working with the DA's office. But on a serious note, and we have some more questions, and we got a lot of time. So hang on, folks. On a serious note, how important, because that's what this show was built on, strengthening the mind.
Yes.
You made me a warrior. I got that title, audience. If you Google Doug Blacksher, this is the woman who turned me into a warrior. So if you don't be mad at me, be mad at our future DA. Tell our audience what you're going to do to help the police understand not only how to deal with the psychological damages of young people who go visit their mom and dad in Santa Rita Jail under Sheriff Ahern, but what it does to that child when you put that child back on the street and ask them to interact like a rich white person kid would. Thank you.
We know in our community, in our tradition, we know that hurt people hurt people. And our children, when they're hurting people, most often they've been hurt. And, those of us that have survived the drug wars and the police misconduct and have, managed to make it and get education and get positions, we know that it was not easy and that everybody was not able to make it. And there's a lot of structural, systemic, institutional racism and just a lot of racism everywhere. I see it as a lawyer every day. Trust me, I still have to be confronted with it and have to call it out and then have people say, oh no, she called me a racist. Yeah, well, it looked like it to me. I know what it looks like. Okay. So it's there. It is an everyday occurrence in this country. And often people are judged and treated differently based on their race, based on their socioeconomic status. And so for me, it's important that my deputies understand when they walk into a case, when you walk into a courtroom and you've got a defendant who is maybe incarcerated, but is presumed innocent under the Constitution, your job is first and foremost to figure out how do we establish what's the appropriate path for this person. Most of the people in Santa Rita County Jail are pre-trial detainees. That means they have not been convicted of anything, over 80%. That's an unacceptable incarceration rate. And so my deputies need to be looking, how am I going to ensure public safety, protect public safety? And if this person has harmed someone, make sure that they are not going to harm that person again or somebody else. But I also need to understand, is incarcerating this person at this time the best thing? Most studies have shown that people who are arrested and are released on their own recognizance do in fact come back to court. Okay, we don't need money bail for people to come back to court. That's just another way of robbing the poorest of the poor in our community of the little wealth that they have, right? Because I tell people all the time, when Junior goes to jail, who's the first person they call? It's Big Mama. Big Mama got to figure out, how am I going to take my little money, my little Social Security check, and post bail for this boy? That's so horrible. We got to stop that. Go ahead, Doug.
Girl, I know your game plan, so I'm ready to just keep pitching the ball to you like that. Let me ask you something. If you know, what is the percentage of African Americans getting caught up in this cycle that you just described versus all the other races put together? Thank you, if you know.
Unfortunately, in Alameda County, however you look at the data, the numbers are pretty horrendous. In Alameda, if you live in Oakland, you're 4 times more likely to be stopped by the police than a white person. That's number one. Okay. If you live in Oakland, what the Stanford study found was that when police officers stop someone for a basic traffic stop and did not arrest that person, 93% of the people who were placed in handcuffs, now not arrested, have not committed a crime to be arrested, but still they got placed in handcuffs, were Black people, 93%. And the number is just as high for those who ended up having some type of further engagement. But to me, just the fact that because I'm Black, I'm going to be handcuffed if I have an encounter with a police officer, that's crazy. In Alameda County overall, Black people are 20 times more likely to be incarcerated than a white person. That's across the county. Those are horrible numbers. And the numbers that we have from Oakland are only because of the Stanford study and the consent decree and the court-appointed monitor. We're not monitoring folks in Hayward. We're not monitoring folks in Pleasanton or Livermore or Fremont. We're not looking at those departments, or Berkeley, okay? We're not looking at those departments. They're not under the microscope the way that OPD has been under the microscope. But I suspect if you put these other folks under the microscope, you're going to see similar numbers, if not worse, particularly in some of the outlying areas, as we know.
Dr. Ashley, I'm going to pass the ball to you because as my mentor told me, Donnie Glover, man, you got to pass the ball, dude. You got to. So, Dr. Ashley, go ahead.
I'll take the handoff and run with it. Ms. Price, can you share with us what are some of the innovative programs that you are planning to bring to Alameda County?
Sure. I am excited to bring to Alameda County a number of different programs. Number one, my priority is to deal with the reduction of gun violence. It absolutely has to occur across the county. And so it's important to me that as the next district attorney that I am participating in efforts to reduce the flow of ghost guns into Alameda County. California has become ground central for ghost guns. We are being flooded with these guns. And studies have shown that in a communities that have more guns have more violence, have more death. And so a lot of times people will do things, as we know, with a gun that they wouldn't do if they didn't have a gun, right? And that includes not only hurting somebody else, but hurting themselves. Suicide is still the largest percentage of deaths by gun is suicide. But yes, we are California's ground central for ghost guns. Alameda County is no exception. And we have to stop these guns. These are guns that you buy on the computer. You get the parts and the instructions on the internet. They mail them to your house. You can put your little gun together, okay? And it doesn't have a serial number, so it's untraceable. So that's why it's called a ghost gun. We also know that the guns that people are using in the community, they did not make those guns. Those guns came here. People brought those guns here and sold them here. And so I want to deal with the source of the problem and not simply the symptom, okay? And so as district attorney, my job is to, one, try to participate in targeting these ghost gun manufacturers, participate in other gun manufacturers that sell and provide and distribute guns illegally in our community. And I'm going to focus on that. We got to reduce the number of guns because that's a huge source of how we're getting hurt. I also want to bring neighborhood courts here, which is another way of establishing accountability and modeled on restorative justice. We know that restorative justice works. Whether it works for young people, whether it works for communities, it does work, and it needs to come to Alameda County. I'm fortunate to know one of the people who wrote the program for San Francisco, and I've been talking to her since the first time we ran about how do we bring neighborhood courts to Alameda County. Alameda has great neighborhoods, whether it's Irvington or Niles in Fremont, whether it's the Laurel District or, North Oakland in Oakland. And Berkeley, we have great neighborhoods, and our communities will be safer and stronger if we can get people to participate in this initiative that will hold people accountable. If you come into our neighborhood, you commit a crime, you need to understand the impact that you had on the person who was violated. And the community gets to have a significant say in what the responsibility will be, how we will hold you accountable, and bringing that person back into that community and restoring them in a way that does not destroy them. That's the opportunity we have. It's worked in Seattle, Philadelphia, New York, around the country. There are different places where it has worked, San Francisco, and so we have an opportunity to do that here, and we will start that. Yeah.
Just say something. This is a young person, and and growing up in Oakland, and one having reverence for my parents, but there are certain things you wouldn't even think about doing in the neighborhood because you knew who was in the neighborhood and there was a community aspect. And so anybody's parents could check you or correct you. Let me put it like that.
Yeah.
And so there was accountability from a group standpoint and then a relationship. And you and others have just mentioned, and my friends and I, we're under 40, but we're like, wow, like, our parents are boomers and these young kids aren't respecting boomers that way. And we're like, oh, no. We never wouldn't even think about, we did our challenging of expectations and whatnot, but in a different way that was just rooted in respect and love. And so when I see some of the things happening in Oakland or hear about certain things, the idea of elders needing to be afraid of youth is really something that has to be addressed.
Right. It does. It really does. This will make our goal, public safety will thrive in a strong community where people are tied together and understand that we keep us safe, and that all of us have a role to play. And when our children start to see that, we will have, a better neighborhood. That's right. Yes, Doug.
You see my hand, teacher? We're working with 4 minutes left, and I got about 6 hours worth of questions to go. So I'm going to take the ones that I can do quickly. And Dr. Ashley, I know you feel the same way. Future District Attorney Pamela Price, can we hold you to definitely coming back on this show? Because once you become DA, we're going to have the DA's corner on the Black Business Roundtable, because the next few questions is going to directly target why you are so important to the Black Business Roundtable that's heard from coast to coast, Mexico to Canada, and several other countries. Now, the first question, and these will be quick. Do you get any money, contribution from law enforcement, whether they be Sheriff Ahern's Empire or Oakland PD or California law enforcement? That's a yes or no question, Counselor.
No, I do not. I'm the only candidate in the race that has taken the no cop money pledge.
What about your competition? That's a yes or no, Counselor.
Yes.
And we won't even say who, but we'll corner that for later. Working with 3 minutes. We had 2 gentlemen come on the show, both who were serving life sentences.
Wow.
Now they are powerful in our community, and one helped the other become as powerful. So because we're working with less than 2 minutes, if you know, do you know John Jones III, and do you know Sabir Lockett? And if you do know them, in your opinion, Counselor, how have these 2 men who are on death row in some of the roughest prisons in this country, how they come back and positively impact our community? That's my last question. Thank you.
Yes, I know both of those gentlemen, and they have been very positive in the effort to make our community better and stronger and more compassionate and understanding that anybody can make a mistake. And so often what happens with particular Black men as well as Black women, our lives get thrown away. Our lives don't matter. And that's the criminal justice system. That's how it has been operating. And we've lost some of the best minds, I'm sure, by just over incarcerating people. And so I have to reverse that trend, and I have to remedy the harm that the system has caused to people like John Jones III and Sabir Lockett.
I know I said last question, but one last question for those non-progressive people who thinks like Marjorie Taylor Greene,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think about defund the police? And on that note, we'll close out. Thank you.
I think it depends on each community, has to determine how they allocate the budget. Often, the budget decisions have been made without regard to what services are actually needed. And some communities have overspent in that, overinvested in policing, and some have kept it proportional. So every community gets to decide what they want to do with their police, and the public should have a say so about that in every community.
Well, folks, if you didn't know, if you weren't clear, you are clear here today in regards to our future district attorney and elected for the last 40 plus years going to be elected into the Alameda County District Attorney's office. Dr. Ashley, this has been an eye-opening show today because I've already knew a lot of this stuff, Pamela, because I know you. But audience, this is the type of district attorney that we need to get our people of color, out of the doghouse and into the White House. Thank you, Pamela Price. We truly learned a tremendous amount of how this system works for white people and do not work for Black people. So as we close out with this powerful guest speaker, thank you for taking the time to come on the show today. I apologize that I haven't been out there running up and down the hills and going to meetings, but as you can see, you've trained me well.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Doctor, for having me. You guys take care. God bless you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Dr.
Bye-bye.
Ashley, can you give our sponsors a word of acknowledgement and especially Donnie Glover? Donnie Glover, I see you said it was a village that raised you then, but now seems to be a different world as respect is absent. So Donnie Glover, let me tell you, you brought this Black USA News to a whole nother level, and I personally am glad that you are letting me ride on this boat, in this car, on this ship, on this train, on the back of the scooter. Thank you. Dr. Ashley, please.
Absolutely. Again, and I echo the gratitude to Mr. Donnie Glover. We want to invite our listeners to check out Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Fridays. What a show that was last week. Again, RSVP and join Chef Carter Lewis every Friday in March for amazing biscuit sandwiches and $5 ice cold beer at Soul Slice. And this Sunday, please join them as well for the Gospel Brunch located at 5849 San Pablo Avenue in the heart of Oakland, California. Support a local eatery in Oakland and check out their catering services for your personal or business event. Make your reservations today. Again, www.soulslice.com. Learn more about Tammy Willis, owner of Magnolia Engineering and Construction, by visiting the company's website, www.magnoliaengineeringandconstruction.com. They want to be a part of growing with the community of Oakland, California. Connect with Magnolia Engineering and Construction now on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And finally, to join our advertisement family, send us an email to bbrt2021@hotmail.com. Don't forget to enclose details about your company name, address, website, phone number, and social media page. And Doug, I'll kick it back to you because we get to have one of our fellow podcast members coming on. So Doug.
Dr. Ashley, before she comes on, we got 30 seconds.
Okay.
I want to tell you, audience, Black people's civil rights are being trampled on, not only here in Oakland, but in Texas, as you see us campaigning for the kids and for hardworking people in Texas, fighting down in Atlanta, Georgia, having Market Flowers on, and also in Florida, where we got to get little Marco Rubio up out of there and put Val Demings in. It is critical. I humbly ask that you look at the civil rights that are being trampled on in Oakland, California, in the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965. It is being not even trampled on. It's just being thrown in the trash. Let's get intelligent, America. Let's get intelligent. Now, moving forward, let's continue with our guest, Tasmere, my fellow podcast host of the Blackout, live from New York City under the BlackUSA.News network of shows. Dr. Ashley, that's my girl. What's going on, Tasmere? New York, New York.
Hello. I'm so happy to be here.
How's the weather out there, girlfriend?
I didn't go out today, but I think it's cold, so I just stayed in.
We are so happy to have you on the show. Dr. Ashley, please fire up that question, because if not, we're going to go overtime, because this is, audience, just like I run the West Coast, like Tupac, she running the East Coast, like Big E, baby.
Thank you for that, Doug. I'm so glad to be here with you guys tonight.
Thank you again. We're looking forward to it. So I have the privilege to ask you the first question. Can you tell us, a little bit about your background and how you connected with Donnie Glover?
Oh, I'll keep it short. So I'm actually an urban planner by profession. Mm-hmm. I worked in community and economic development for over a decade, working to do commercial revitalization projects and neighborhood planning and building. I met Donnie when we were both part of a group that was really trying to think through how to have Black folks have their own certification, because we do have the MWBE, but we know that that doesn't always consider Black Americans, right? And we're talking about people that were born here, because most of our stories are also overlaid with the immigrant stories. So, you kind of can't separate it out, but trying to think through how are we going to have a repository for contracts for Black folks? How are we going to lobby for more sole source contracts, that we can have some contracts to build our businesses? And Donnie and I really clicked over that time, trying to forge forward and be demanding and, be very proactive. And then he called me. He was like, hey, you want a show? And I was like, I guess, yeah, because you asking. So I started the Blackout Live from New York on Independence Day as my stick it to the people. So I'm super excited to be here.
Tasmere, every time I see you, I think of, once again, Tupac and Biggie, East Coast, West Coast, but we not beefing, we networking, my sister.
Of course.
And that's what we should be doing as a people. Networking, not beefing.
I agree.
To that end, what is the essence of your podcast, The Blackout, live from New York City under the Black USA News network of shows, is about, and when your show is broadcast live? Thank you.
I'm going to have to record you, Doug, for my intro, The Blackout live from New York City. So on The Blackout, I really explore business trends and how does it relate to Black folks, right? Like we have all these economic things happening around us. How do we try to be a part of the conversation at the beginning? Like, how do we insert ourselves? Because oftentimes we don't insert ourselves until the money is already gone, right? Or everybody has already made the money, and then we're like, okay, maybe there's something in it for me, and then there's really nothing else there, right? So how do we start to understand across the diaspora of Black folks, because we do get pinned against each other because we do have an immigration story, right? So we do get pinned against each other, and when sometimes that doesn't allow us to be collaborative. But if we start thinking through the diaspora, what's happening where Black people are all over the world, and how can we start to think about it from a business lens and maybe start working with each other and the allies that we do have in order to move our economics forward, because it's all about the money. Where the money resides is where the money resides.
But Tashmere, we haven't had a conversation like this in a long time, so I'm gonna keep it 100 with the audience. One thing, audience, that this sister, and she's a lot younger than me. I think you're 22, 23 years old.
I'll take that. I'll take that. I'll take her.
You owe me lunch at dinner. You owe me dinner. But audience, can Tashmere, you are in New York. I'm in California. Can you say that critical component as it relates to the money and how we need to be there when they're sitting at the table, not cleaning up, and they've gone home and taken the money with them? Can you say that again about when we should be at the table, Black people, when they're giving out them $500 million, as they do in the city of Oakland, and only 0.32%. That's $1.4 million out of $500 million. Can you say that one more time, how important it is to be at the beginning of it? Because what you said is happening in Oakland, California. We are not at the table at the beginning. And if we are at the table, it's a bunch of house niggas. Oops, I'm sorry.
Well, I would say that, just think about Bitcoin. Bitcoin was something that has been around for a while, right? I remember one time I went to a meetup group with attorneys that were really trying to figure out how they were going to use this blockchain technology. And I remember that I went back and I told somebody like, hey, I don't even know what this is, but you seem like you have some money, so you might want to investigate this whole blockchain thing, and maybe you might want to figure out how to get in there. That was at least 3 years before blockchain was a thing, right? And so it's also about how do we value the person that's bringing back the information? Because usually we don't value it when it's coming from someone that looks like us, right? We got to value it when it's coming from someone that's not part of the community. And at that point, the money was really being made 3 years before it became mainstream. If you're trying to get in now, yeah, you might make some money, but nothing compared to what you would have made if you were there earlier, right? So trying to understand how economics works, and to be quite honest, as Americans, we're at a disadvantage because we don't study global economies, right? We don't look across our borders. Sometimes we don't even look across the zip code that we're in. So we have no idea what's happening somewhere else and how that might be able to implement what we're doing. And then we find out about it again when all the money has been, extracted and all the deals have been made. And they were like, hey, I want to get in, but there's really nothing left to get into. So we have to be a little bit more diligent about that. And we need to start thinking through, how do we share information with each other across borders? I mean, everybody's virtual now, so we don't have any excuse. But how do you try to really understand how to get your bag, right, before it's all gone? Because once it's gone, it's not going to be reinvented. So Donnie was asking me about the time of my show, and it is Saturdays at 10:15 Eastern Standard Time in the morning. You should definitely stop by, see my 1-year-old co-host, with the mostest. He's been on the show since I've had the show. So super excited to see what his ideas will be in the future. And this week, you guys are not going to believe this. If you could get up to watch this, you will be pleasantly, delighted. I have two of my youngest entrepreneurs coming on the show to pitch their businesses. One is in kindergarten. Okay, you heard me. Kindergarten. She's 6 years old. And the other one is in in third grade, and she's 8 years old. And when I tell you that they will embarrass most adults because they know their customers, their pricing, where they want to go, what they want to do, they are like super, super, super fierce. I definitely want everyone to tune into them as they do their interviews and their pitches this weekend.
Let me jump in for a second, just say I'm a morning person, even on the weekends. Thanks, Mom. And it's Women's History Month. Tasmere, I've watched your show, but I watched you command your show while rocking your baby to sleep. And I just want to salute you because, women go out and get it and make it happen. And you're a New Yorker, so I already know that the hustle is there. But when we talk about just the opportunity as young Black women to do it anyway, in California, we used to have bring your daughter, bring your son to work, which was a wonderful model for me to see and see my parents working what they did. But I just had to let you know that I saw you doing it. And handling it and not missing a beat. And so just before we hear a little bit more about the topics and other guests coming up, just curious, tell us a little bit more about how do you balance it all?
I don't think there's like a secret trick to it, right? It's like I just have this desire to have my own standard of excellence and what I want to do, right? And becoming a mom was definitely on the list of things to do. And I knew that I didn't want to give up my career. I didn't want to give up opportunities. And I had to really be comfortable with saying people are either going to accept that I have a kid and that he's going to be with me in all the places and spaces that I'm going to be, or they're not. And if they're not, then they don't need me, right? So if I need to be on my show and I need to have him because I don't have, another place for him to be, then that's just going to have to be something that folks are going to have to accept. And I find that when I started walking in that kind of confidence, other people just accepted it. Like, everyone basically knows my son by first name. They know his name is Elijah. When he's not around, they're like, hey, what's going on? Where is he? What, my clients understand that. I have contractors that understand that. And that's just part of like what you're going to get when you're working with me is that you're also going to get my kid, right? And that's probably how it's going to be forever. Even when he's big enough to be in another space, he's probably going to be next to me while I'm working, and I'm totally okay with that.
Yes. Deb, go ahead.
Is it my turn?
Well, I want to jump in and ask just two more questions. Just two more questions. I'm going to pass the ball. Follow up to that, Tasmere, talk to our listeners who are moms who may be debating or don't know, want to go back and get it, want to make it happen, or may feel like they have to choose. Speak. What would you wish you would have known? Especially, I'm putting you on the spot. We got to tap into that mother strength. It's our month. So what would you say?
I would say, one, you have to give yourself some grace, right? And also you have to figure out, what do you want to stand for, right? Do you want to be, what kind of parent do you want to be? And that's for different kind of people. Like, some people want to be workaholics and put their kids in activities so that way they can do what they have to do. And that's completely fine. You just have to figure out what kind of parent you want to be and what are you willing to sacrifice for that. Fortunately for me, I'm an entrepreneur, so I can basically call my own shots every single day, right? I can say like, I'm going to work with you. I'm not going to work with you. I'll work with you at this rate. And this is what it comes with. But a lot of people aren't in that space to demand what it is that they want. So you have to figure out like, how do you make negotiations for that, and understanding that those negotiations can change over time, and giving yourself the ability to be okay with how you want to parent, not how somebody else wants you to parent, right? So how do you want to do it, and what role do you want to play? I think that's the only advice I can give.
And I'm glad you COVID, mothers making decisions about childcare, schooling, education, and also just wanting to maybe pursue these passions, become an entrepreneur, but need to see a blueprint. So back to this podcast, you're telling us about these young entrepreneurs that are going to be pitching on Saturday morning. Can you give us a preview of who else is kind of queued up?
Okay, so queued up. I have an attorney coming from Atlanta. She does she does acquisitions and franchises, and she really works with businesses to understand that. I have a venture capitalist. He actually is the main person making these deals to talk to Black folks about how to become more investable, right? Because we always think about these big terms again at the end of the table. We're like, oh, there's something called VC funds. And then we don't necessarily have our businesses even structured to take on VC funding, right? We don't even know what is all involved and what do you have to do. So those are just two people that I have coming through. I'm doing a lot more interviews now with a mixture of generations of folks because I'm transgenerational, right? So bringing on a lot of different folks in a lot of different areas. I just had a woman named Kate on, who is actually the founder of Luminary, where I am a member. And she has been able to scale her business in about 3 years. She has corporate partnerships. She got the money reside is where the money reside. And she gave a lot of insight into how relationships helped to build her business. And I think that that's also something that we don't think about. We think we're going to launch this and people are just going to come flocking to it. And sometimes it takes a long time for the doors to start opening, and you have to rely on, building strong relationships with folks.
Doug, back to you. Yeah.
Well, as we wrap this up, because I really want to give acknowledgement to Women's History Month, but Tasmere from New York, are there any last words you would like to share with our audience regarding your podcast on the YouTube Donnie Glover channel? And are you looking for certain types of guests that perhaps can reach out to you for future bookings? Thank you.
Woo! I'm telling you, Doug, I need to get that audio note for my intro of my show. Basically, one, thank you. I didn't even know you guys were watching me and Elijah all the way on the West Coast. I'm gonna tell him as soon as I'm done. I'm gonna go give him the news. But back to what you were asking me. I don't really have a certain criteria for my interviews, right? I just want people to come and be raw and honest about whatever it is that we're going to talk about and relate it back to Black folks. That's like what I am talking about. How do we get Black folks to sometimes wake up and smell the coffee? Sometimes they already smelt the coffee and they're running into different barriers, and they need to be creative and innovative. And what does that take? And how do we learn lessons from each other? So if there's anybody that wants to have that kind of conversation and chop it up with me and my 1-year-old, definitely shoot me an email to info@thedmfirmnyc.com.
And on that note, I'll need you guys both mute yourselves because I gotta wrap this up in a powerful statement. In that note, audience, as you can see, the blackusa.news under Donnie Glover, we are hooking up, networking, Oakland, California with New York, and from Canada to Mexico and countries outside of this hemisphere, excuse me. So, Tasmere, we humbly thank you for coming on the show. Audience, if you can't go to New York, you can be in New York on the podcast on Tasmere Blackout, coming live every Saturday morning from New York. Tasmere, we love you in Oakland, California. We follow you. Audience, Tasmere, good night.
Thank you.
Now, we would like to get this last moment out with giving our tribute. And as you can see, audience, I've been surrounded by some of the most intelligent Black women in America here today. Tasmere from New York, my Dr. Ashley, and my friend and civil rights attorney. And let me tell you something, audience, we need civil rights because ours are getting trampled over, as I've seen in BART board meeting, Oakland City Council, and Alameda County Board of Supervisors meeting. Dr. Ashley, please take it away.
Absolutely. So again, we want to salute just so many remarkable women, and we'll be doing that throughout the month, but just again, throughout each show. But we want to highlight Miss Rosa Parks, again, often regarded as the mother of civil rights movement, as she refused to give up her seat on the bus to a white man in Montgomery, Alabama. She was subsequently arrested in 1955, and this moment in time prompted the Montgomery bus boycott. She lived, born 1913, died 2005, and at that time I was a student at Howard University, and she was on display for us to pay our respects in the rotunda, and so that was such a privileged personal moment for me to be able to pay respects to Ms. Rosa Parks. Ms. Shirley Chisholm, born in 1924, departed also in 2005, the first Black woman elected to the United States Congress. She served for 7 terms spanning from 1969 to 1983 and represented New York's 12th congressional district. She was also the first African American running for a major party's nomination for President of the United States. Unbought and unbossed was her tagline. Ms. Maya Angelou, born in 1928, departed in 2014. Wow, such a powerhouse scholar, dancer, activist, singer, poet, and author. Her most famous poem is Still I Rise, denoting the spirit of Black people. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, born in 1933, departed in 2020, the second woman and first Jewish woman to serve on the United States Supreme Court. She supported the rights of women, members of the LGBTQIA community, and other underrepresented groups. Miss Angela Davis, the Bay Area is known, born in 1944. Most may remember her due to the Soledad brothers accused of killing a prison guard. She was a member of the Communist Party and the Black Panther Party. She is an author, political activist, and professor. And finally, Miss Michelle Obama, born in 1964, the first African-American First Lady of the United States, spanning from 2009 to 2016, and what Black women call their forever First Lady, and attorney, author, advocate for healthy families, service members and their families, higher education, and international adolescent girl education. Doug, just thank you for saving space for us to acknowledge these pioneers.
Dr. Ashley, we have had a dynamite show today.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was angry, but the show was so great. I'm happy and want to go enjoy just listening to that sister, and how, once again, audience, I'll say this before I close this out. The enemy wants Black people to fight each other, not only here in Oakland, in Alameda County, and in California, but in New York. And as the Black USA.news has so carefully crafted, is a networking process. I humbly ask that you reach out to Tasmere of Blackout in New York, New York. I might do that. But this is how we come from the bottom to the top. This is how we come from the bottom to the top. On that note, thank you to our weekly special guest and my friend, co-host, sister, cousin, doctor, lawyer. I got my civil rights lawyer. She was just on. But Dr. Ashley Coleman, Doctor of Psychology. Returning later this month, Janani Ramachandran Esquire, our grassroots fighter of human rights and candidate running for Oakland City Council District 4. See more of Janani via her website at Janani4, and that's FOR Oakland.com, or on Instagram at Janani4 Oakland. Thank you again to an attorney, Pamela Price, fighting for fair and ethical election. Pamela Price for DA, Instagram, Pamela Price for DA.com and Instagram at Pamela Price Cares. Now, quick sidebar on Pamela Price. She is one hell of a civil rights attorney, and the way our civil rights are being trampled on, not only here in Oakland, in the county of Alameda, in the state of California, and all across this country, we need civil rights attorneys, and one who have argued cases and won in the Supreme Court of the United States. Also, see Tasmere and fellow podcast hosts of the Blackout live from New York on the Black USA News network of shows. Thank you all for your appearance on the show today, and we hope that you will come back and continue to educate our growing audience in the future. A special shout out to my brother of BlackUSA.news and current sponsor, Soul Slice Restaurant and Catering, with Chef Carter Lewis and Tammy Willis, owner of Magnolia Engineering and Construction, to join the Black Business Roundtable advertising family or to be a possible guest on the show. Reach us via our email, bbrt2021@hotmail.com. Include your company name, address, website, company phone number, and social media page info to our email address, and that is bbrt2021@hotmail.com. We also have a network of shows hosted by Mr. Donnie Glover, my brother, such as Chapin Friends on Mondays, Party Marty Let's Talk, and Black USA Crypto News with Kamal Hubbard on Friday. You already heard about Tasmere from New York on Saturday, and Sundays, 60 Minutes in Black USA with Michael Haney. So be sure to check out these Black voices and guiding light of our community. Audience, this has been a wonderful, outstanding, awesome show. I've been surrounded by sisters who are both beautiful, intelligent, and are making a difference in our city, county, state, and in our country. And now we are networking. To that end, thank you, audience, for tuning in. And remember, we can listen, we can learn, and share because I know you care. This is Doug Blacksher of the let me back up. This is Doug Blacksher and Dr. Ashley of the Black Business Roundtable. God bless, good night, and thank you. We'll see you next week.